Thank you, Joel. As we continue to shine a spotlight on youth this month, of course, during Youth Month, youths are the future energy consumers and leaders. And involving youth in the energy sector, especially from marginalised communities, corrects past inequities, allows for equitable access to opportunities, not just timely, but these are obviously also urgent. Commodore Industries, one such player in the energy space at large, aims to create pathways for brighter and self-sufficient Africa through energy and innovation under the helm of its founder, Tokologo Phetla, who joins us now for a chat this Youth Month. He is on a mission as an advocate for change in the energy sector, whilst also ensuring that inclusive energy economy and ecosystem is realized, not limited to South Africa, but also across the continent. Tokologo Phetla now joins us on his journey and mission at large. Good morning. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC at this hour.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
The Commodore, let's get into the chat. How did you get bitten by the entrepreneurial bug? What opportunities then existed for you in the energy sector as a result? And how have you managed to carve out that niche for you, particularly in the renewable energy space?
I mean, look, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19, so I started up my first business in university. And, in your 20s, it's really about learning and exploring and, doing business for its own sake. But as I got older, I think when I turned 27, I analyzed the future of the African continent, and you start realizing that, this youth identity does not absolve you from taking responsibility for your nation or your continent. And when I analyzed Africa, we realized, so our belief is that you cannot have economic growth without excess energy or energy stability, or without easy trade infrastructure like rails and ports. So, our business, Commodore Industries, we're now focused in those two sectors. We do utility scale energy plants. We're also deeply involved in rail and logistics infrastructure. So we move commodities via trains, out of ports in South Africa, in addition to our energy business. And we made that decision simply out of our mission to industrialize Africa. And to industrialize, you need energy stability. To industrialize, you need easy trade infrastructure. And that's really our life mission, or our company mission at Commodore Industries.
Okay, Tokologo, I've gone blank here. My devices have gone blank. But let me see if I can continue this conversation on the back of what you've echoed now. Role that young people, based on what you've said, the role that young people play in promoting off-grid energy solutions, especially to the most vulnerable of communities. Tell us a little bit more about that vision as well. But the main barriers to entry, I mean, I'm imagining there's access to capital, regulatory barriers as well that you have to face.
Of course. I mean, to answer the first question, so we all talk about the just energy transition right now in South Africa. My view is that the energy transition is happening, but it is not yet just, in the sense that when you build a utility scale plant right now, or even with the ESCOM REAP bid windows, an IPP can give sell power to ESCOM, let's say for 50 cents per kilowatt hour, as indicated by the last bid window round 7. However, the South African consumer is still paying the normal tariffs, so the savings have not yet been passed on to the consumer. And so the only people that benefit right now are the IPPs who sell their energy, the banks who lend us the money and make interest off it. ESCOM buys energy at a cheaper rate, but that benefit has still not filtered down to the ordinary citizen. So for me, when I think about how energy affects the community, we should be seeing a significant decline in energy costs towards the end customer as we roll out these renewable energy or alternative energy plants. So we need to see that happening. I believe, so that's the one benefit that we should be seeing. The second benefit, in terms of inclusion of youth, I mean, you're right. This is a space with high barriers to entry. To give you an example, to build a 100 megawatt solar plant, for example, can cost you about 1.5 billion rand. Yeah. So as a young person, how do you even begin to mobilize that capital? And even if you get debt against it, 10% needs to be equity. So you need to find 150 million rand somewhere. I must say that I've been thoroughly impressed by the DFIs in the country. They do come to support young IPPs like ourselves when we're looking for equity. I do, however, think the main barrier is equity capital. So before you even get to a phase where your project can be fundable or bankable, you need about 10 million to 20 million rand to just develop it. And, where do you find that? So South Africa has a huge gap where there is no risk capital. And that is the one downside of the DFIs and the one downside of our banks and financial markets. There is literally no place at all, whether it's DBSA, IDC, whoever, no one gives risk capital. That creates a huge barrier, because without historical accumulation of funds, there is absolutely no way you can enter this industry.
Yeah. And I mean, just also because you're an entrepreneur and, operating in this space, you're obviously providing employment to about 390 people, the pressure on that front as well. But, I just wonder if we even look at, what the future looks like for you, for your company as well. Talk to us about what you envision. What are some of those, much needed requests that you want to see on the coming months? I'm asking this because obviously it's winter season now, you are a player, but also there's the national dialogue that's landing as well.
I mean, what we would like to see for the country, we all know that our coal-fired power station fleet, some of it is reaching its end of life. And we need to find alternative replacements for that energy, and you need to replace baseload energy with baseload energy. While renewables are a critical part of the energy mix, they're not the sole solution. So we'd like to see government pushing more aggressively towards implementing alternative energy forms, like, for example, gas to power. That's one viable form of baseload energy that we can implement, to ensure our energy security for the nation. So I think that's one. There's a lot of private sector partners, who've developed gas to power plants that are feasible, that are ready to go, just pending offtake from Eskom, for example. So I think, private sector has done a lot to ensure that we can secure the energy security of this country. I believe the Ministry of Electricity and Energy is also doing a lot. I just would like to see those programs happening more aggressively. That's one point. The second point, I think, with our national bid windows, the IPP office, it's absolutely a bit ridiculous for me. When you look at it historically, most of these bid awards are going to international foreign companies. And, when you speak to the IPP office about it, they use price as a justification. In the past, there used to be a requirement for localization, so at least 30% had to be owned by a local energy company. That requirement now has completely fallen off. There's no longer BE requirements to that degree. There's no longer localization requirements to that degree in terms of ownership. When I speak localization, I'm not saying doing a community trust and giving people bursaries. I'm speaking about real ownership. Yeah. And that has completely fallen away, and as a result,
I'm going to have to interject there. We have run out of time, I'm being told, so we'll leave our conversation there. Thank you for your time at this hour, for weighing in during this Youth Month. Tokologo Phetla there, founder of Commodore Industries, chatting on all things related to the energy sector, of course, in South Africa and the continent, to the impact that they also aim to have during this Youth Month.